All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, Governor Hochul proposes a statewide ban on cell phones in school. Will your child's phone soon be left at the door? Then TikTok is back in the headlines. President Trump's executive order delayed the ban. Will the popular app survive or face a permanent shutdown? And finally, say goodbye to the difficult process of canceling your gym membership. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. All right, hello and welcome to Today's Verdict, the interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet me at David Lesh and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. And check us out at bronxnet.tv. At least 8 states have implemented banning or restricting cell phones in schools. New York City, which has the largest school district in the country, was considering a cell phone ban last year, but abandoned the plan due to parents' concerns. To tell us more about how this ban could look in your city school, we have Professor David Bloomfield from Brooklyn College and the CUNY Graduate Center. Professor, thanks for being here today.
Good to be here. Thank you.
I have a 14-year-old who is pretty much attached to his phone at all times. He's not happy with the fact that can't bring his phone into his school right now. He's at a private school. What's changing that we think we may be putting a ban into effect?
There's a great deal of political pressure, popular pressure on the governor to do something. And so as part of her budget bill, she's going to introduce a proposal to ban cell phones in all public schools from bell to bell, she says, which is quite unusual. That means students won't have access to cell phones at lunch or recess or study halls, in addition to regular class time.
What's the reason for it? I mean, are grades down? Kids not paying attention? Sometimes a phone, if you have to call a loved one if there's a problem, is a good thing to have on you. Why do we want to ban the cell phones?
There's a great deal of evidence at this point that students are disengaged from their studies and disengaged from one another because they're looking down at their phones. They're looking down at their phones waiting for the next text, or whatever happens to TikTok, watching the next TikTok video. And so this is a way for the governor and the educational establishment to try to get kids back to learning and not just texting.
Parents have a problem with this. They had a problem with it last year, which I think is one of the reasons it didn't go through. And I think that their main concern is that they don't have access to their child immediately if there is an emergency, a problem.
The governor saw this coming and embedded in her proposal, which, it has to be stated, has to be approved by the legislature, and the legislature will probably make some changes. But in her proposal, schools must allow parents access to the school to deliver messages to students.
But that's the way it's always been. You've always been able to get a hold of the principal if there was a problem with your child. You wanted to pick up your child was sick, or there was an issue. Actually, they should call you if your child was sick. The nurse would call you, or back in my day, you would go to the principal, and the principal would call your parent. Parents don't want that. Parents want to be able to get the immediate satisfaction of reaching their child, to know their child is okay, especially with the gun violence that we see now throughout our schools. So
again,
what can you do?
Again, the governor saw this coming. The governor has said, and this is true, that having a cell phone can be unsafe in a gun situation.
How so?
Because you're in a quiet room,
right.
You're huddled away, and all of a sudden, mom or dad is calling to see if you're all right. And the phone goes off, and the gun person knows that there are kids in that classroom. So you can't have it both ways. I mean, I think we've spoken about it before, that parents want all those other kids not to have cell phones. They just want their kids to have cell phones. So the governor is trying to balance that by saying that schools have to have proposals in place for parent communication, but that the school has to also ban the cell phone from classrooms and lunchrooms and study halls and playgrounds, because she wants, and I think it's a good thing, she wants kids to be engaged with one another as well as with their teachers.
Now, at my child's school, in terms of penalties, there's like an incrementing scale. You know, if you get caught with it once, using it once, you know, you have to go see the dean. If you get caught using it twice, you may get detention for an hour or two. I don't know. 3 times, you're out of school for the day or 2 days. What are we going to do with the public schools?
I'm really glad you're bringing that up, because that's kind of uncharted waters, the governor says, and a lot of what she's recommending is, here's the bell-to-bell ban, but schools come up with their own plans. And part of that plan has to be discipline. And that's really hard. It's not only a question of what the discipline is going to be, but we know that disproportionate punishments on Black and Latino youngsters is a fact of life. And I'm hoping that whatever happens does not become just another way of punishing kids.
Listen, growing up in the school district in Queens, we have a great 6th grade teacher. And he is concerned that there's too much, I would say, too much responsibility on our teachers to maintain order, to teach, to do so many things. How do teachers survive nowadays?
Well, teachers have a hard time, particularly because there are different rules for different classrooms. And so if teacher X allows cell phones or doesn't really care about it, so it's just go ahead, it's very hard for the next teacher to say, put your cell phones away. But there is a question of student agency here. If we just ban it from outside, students aren't learning what really is necessary to maintain self-discipline, not only in school, but in the home as well. So there is, again, a concern that when, you know, the command comes down from on high to put your cell phone away, students haven't really learned to manage their own screen time, and that's the biggest issue of all.
You know, there's a pattern jury instruction that you basically read to the jury. The judge will read to the jury if your child is injured at a school, and it basically says that a teacher steps into the role of a parent, basically becomes the parent when the child goes to school, and I wonder if teachers have too much responsibility at this point, if they're giving too much just responsibility to try and make sure that the child is safe. And I'm not quite sure how we could fix that, especially with cell phones. Like I'm just trying to think it out to make it so it's a little bit easier to teach nowadays.
Well, classroom management is always number one on teachers' list of skills to try to keep kids engaged. But there is a problem. Michael Mulgrew, the president of the United Federation of Teachers, the teachers union, has said that discipline for this can't fall on every classroom teacher without administrative support. That gets into money. And the governor has only proposed $13.5 million for this initiative. Well, that sounds like a lot of money, but we have 2.5 million public school students. We have another 500,000 charter and private school students. And if this ban goes into effect, there's going to be a lot of new burdens, as you indicate, on teachers to try to enforce this.
Well, it's certainly something, Professor, we're not going to be able to solve today, but we'd love to have you back so we could see whether or not it goes into effect and how the kids are adjusting.
Well, let's see what the legislature does.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, don't go anywhere because we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back. President Trump has signed an executive order granting TikTok a 75-day extension to comply with a law that requires a sale or ban of the platform. Well, to tell us more about this, let's welcome Thomas Bosworth. Thomas, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. You know, I keep bringing up my son because I think basically the world revolves around him when it comes to me. And TikTok, he was very upset that it was going to be banned. Of course, we got a reprieve at the last second. Why are we even banning this app? Let's start from the beginning.
Well, if you were to ask Congress, they would tell you that there's a national security threat from China. I don't believe that to be true because I've seen no evidence of that at all. I think that the real reason is that TikTok has exploded as a social media company and has gobbled up a tremendous portion of the market share in this country of social media companies like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. So it's no secret that Mark Zuckerberg and folks like him have lobbied Congress heavily in the last 4 or 5 years. And I don't believe that to be a coincidence. In most cases where there's a national security threat that overrides a First Amendment right to free speech, it's an actual threat. There's actual evidence, there's actual examples of what's being threatened or what's happening. Here, it's sort of smoke and mirrors.
You know, there are videos that I've watched, young people complaining that they just can't make it in today's society. They're not earning enough money. Inflation is too high. Our system is failing them. It's almost a recipe for socialism. I think that in itself is something that we're a little bit nervous about because we don't want this second coming of anger or any mini revolution to occur, and which is I think sometimes what the Chinese want. So what do you say to the public that makes them feel that they shouldn't worry about the messages that are coming across TikTok with respect to socialism?
I mean, this whole notion of socialism and communism in China, I mean, it's sort of just goofy, in my opinion. The United States of America has one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful militaries in the world. Despite all the issues we have in this country, which are plenty, we still are a world superpower with a strong military, strong infrastructure, strong intelligence. So this notion that discontented youth. I mean, young people have been protesting and complaining and raising a fuss about societal issues since the beginning of time. If you go back to the Vietnam War and onward and onward, I mean, I don't view this as any different. I think it's just that the medium on which people complain is now the internet and it's an app. But there's only good can come, I think, from awareness and exposure of public opinion. I don't view this as anything where there's an actual threat that we would somehow devolve into a communist state.
Well, here's my only real thought when it comes to bipartisanship, and right here you have two parties, Democrats and Republicans, both agreeing on this particular issue. I can't see it as the only reason is because we want the American companies to do better. Facebook, let's say, or Instagram, or some of the other social media platforms. Do you see any threat whatsoever from the Chinese government with respect to having this platform still in use?
No. There are ways that this country and all of our technology and intelligence can detect threats if there are any. By the way, there is the same risk posed in American-owned apps. I mean, foreign individuals from any country, if they're smart enough, can hack into any sort of computer or any sort of device through any app. If you really tease out the argument that the Chinese Communist Party is going to somehow infiltrate our society through the app, you'd have to conclude that almost there'd be some sort of brainwashing, I suppose, because I'm not following what else it would be. I mean, people would, just become zombified and see some red blinking screen in front of them and become a socialist. I'm not following it. I don't think it's ever been articulated in any sort of cogent manner. But the bill, to answer your question, the bill that contained the TikTok ban was baked into a bill which provided tens of billions of dollars of foreign aid to Ukraine and Israel. And I think Congress knew that that bill would gain bipartisan support from both Republicans and Democrats. And I don't know that there was a ton of thought put into the TikTok provision, because think about it. If you're a congressperson, you would have to object to the TikTok part of the bill and hold up the foreign aid to Ukraine and the foreign aid to Israel, which we can have a discussion about how appropriate that is, that we're sending tens of billions of dollars to other countries. But you would probably be heralded as some sort of pariah if you were to object to foreign military aid because of social media app provision. So I don't necessarily think that there was enough thought put into it by Congress, but obviously now there's a huge outcry. And the irony being, of course, that in his final days in office, Joe Biden, who signed this into law, was talking about ways to prevent the ban from happening. So I think it was sort of a oopsie daisy, and then they realized they were affecting 200 million Americans. I mean, a third of American adults are on TikTok. It's no longer some ancillary, fringe thing. It's just not.
Is there a compromise we could somehow come to here? Obviously, we'd love if this particular company was not monitored and has no connection to the Chinese government. Is that possible? Because every time they try and sell it, it looks like the Chinese government isn't allowing the sale. So what do you do?
I don't know that the Chinese government is involved. I know that 20% of the company is owned by shareholders. The owner, the CEO, is Singaporean. He's not from China. He's never been from. So this whole Chinese government, I've never seen, and I'm not being facetious, I've just never seen any actual involvement from the Chinese government. I have seen objections from the company leadership to selling the app, because they created the algorithm that is the central tenet of TikTok's success, the formula, so to speak, that makes the app so successful. I think we'll likely see a joint venture with the current owners of ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, and the United States, whether that's private investors or Elon Musk, or some sort of convergence of the two, because frankly, TikTok doesn't have anywhere to run right now. They're going to either sell or enter a deal or be banned.
All right, well, this is fascinating. We could be talking about this for days. And I have been discussing this with my son nonstop. Hopefully you can come back and we could see whether there was a ban or no ban, if that's okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
It's great having you. All right, we have to take a short break, but we will be back to tell you just how easy it will be to cancel your gym membership. Stay with us.
Hey, creative family. My name is Timothy Coleman, and I'm the Director of Education here at BronxNet. and I'm standing in BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx because I want to let you know about an amazing program that we're bringing back that highlights the creativity of community members just like you. Emerging Media Makers is a show that introduces you to BronxNet's certified producers. They've taken a step in their creative journey by enrolling in BronxNet's media training classes. On this show, you'll get to see the many ways that our certified producers have created a space that's all their own. Emerging Media Makers, your passion lives here.
All right, canceling your gym membership is about to get easier. Well, we have a new law requiring the process to be simplified. Here to tell us more about this is Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz from Assembly District 81. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's always nice having you on. How are you navigating this new normal with our politics?
You know what? We've had fights before, and we're going to continue to have fights. The nature of our job is we have to work as hard as possible, no matter what the conditions are. It's true. We've never had somebody like Trump, somebody who certainly has dictatorial tendencies.
We have a situation where the country, has really rotated in such a way, in some respects. And they're not necessarily so pro-Trump. It's just that they're not necessarily pro-Democrat right now. So what do you think?
I think there have been elections throughout the world where incumbent parties have been thrown out, basically. It's people are not happy in general throughout the planet. Trump does have dictatorial tendencies, no question about it. And we can see what he's been trying to do the first few days. I mean, if he thinks a priority is changing the name of Denali or changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, then I think that shows where his head is at. But I think that's really more of a smokescreen to keep people's mind off of the horrible things that they're trying to do to so many people. But the way I see it, we just have 1,458 more days of this administration, and we got work to do. And in politics, the pendulum swings back and forth. It swung in one direction this year, as it has so many times before, and it will swing back. I have no doubt about that.
All right, let's let's talk about the work that has to be done, and let's talk about, for instance, canceling your gym membership, a lot of people just canceling any memberships have become a very difficult thing. What are your thoughts?
Well, we passed this law because we got complaints, and we try to make things better for people, better for consumers, better for tenants, better for people's healthcare. So this is just one small way of improving things for consumers. Canceling a gym membership shouldn't be an arduous task. It should be easy. And before this law, it was difficult. You should be able to cancel it within reasonable amounts of time. They shouldn't set ridiculous time limits on you. You should be able to do it in various ways, whether it's by email, in person, by letter, whatever. So what we try to do is have a balanced bill that it improves things for consumers without being punitive to to the businesses. We certainly don't want to hurt businesses, and it has a number of features. I mean, it's a laundry list almost. So I'm looking at my notes, but it adds email as a method that you can cancel the contracts. It shortens the period in which a refund is issued to the buyer from 15 days to 10 days. Lowers the period in which an individual canceled their membership because they had a significant physical disability. And it also requires every health club to accept cancellation within 3 business days, no stalling. And for contracts with an annual renewal, the health club is required to accept the cancellation within 15 days, and contracts with a monthly renewal within 3 days. And they're required to accept these notices through the internet, telephone, mail, or in person, and it's not even limited to that. So these changes are reasonable. Again, not meant to be punitive to businesses, but when you have these contracts, they make it so difficult for you. And why should people have to jump through hoops to do something which is reasonable, which is fair? So the change in the law will do that.
Is this
We've already got a lot of people who are thrilled that we've passed this. People, love it.
is this just the beginning? Are we going to see government regulation when it comes to many of these memberships that automatically renew? Because we're all addicted, whether it's Netflix or whatever we have on our accounts, that we don't bother looking at it every month. It just renews. Are we trying to help those become a little bit more aware that they're getting charged, or what do you think? Is this a turning point?
I don't know if it's a turning point. It would be great if it were. I think people should be very careful and like we pay money each month and it comes out automatically for our cable bill, which by the way has become ridiculously expensive. Ridiculous. Our cable bill is over $200 a month. We have
Yeah.
Optimum. And I remember years ago we had channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, and we didn't pay a penny. So it's a different world we're in. But they can give you increases. There's no notice. There's no review. They just increase things. Same thing with our phone bills. My Verizon, they just changed the terms of the contract. If you try to make a change, oh no, you got to pay $1 billion cancellation fee or something. It's really very one-sided because these big companies have all the power, all the leverage, and it's very hard, to make some changes, especially when some things are preempted by federal law. But in the case of the gym contracts, this is something we can do within the state. The state has the ability to make these laws. So I try to look for ideas that, make things better for people.
Were you getting pushback from the big corporations, the gyms throughout the city?
Of course, they have their lobbyists. They're known as Republicans. During the course of this, we may have made some adjustments in the bill to try to be accommodating within reason, but at the same time making sure we're protecting consumers. So ultimately, we passed the bill, which, as I said, is balanced, but is very fair and does a good job in helping consumers.
All right, well, Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, a friend to the show. We're always so happy when you come on. Hopefully you can come back next couple of months and tell us what you've been working on.
Okay, I'd love to do that. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. All right, well, that's all the time we have today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and, of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at bronxnet.tv. Also, remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you'd like to see in a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet me at davidlesh. Make sure to hashtag #AskToday'sVerdict. For myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. I'm David Lesh, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks with an all-new episode. Stay right.